Dozens of retailers in Ontario have sent a letter to the Premier, Doug Ford. They're asking the province to let stores deemed non-essential to reopen in Peel Region and in Toronto, the hotspots that are currently under lockdown. Joining me now are two business leaders who signed that letter. Heather Reisman is the CEO of Indigo, and Sydney Mamane is the owner of Sydney's Toronto, a men's fashion retailer. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hello.
Sydney, I'll begin with you. As a small business owner, going through the lockdown again, what has this experience been like? What has it done to your business?
Oh my God. It has dramatically affected how we operate our business. Obviously, we're a men's clothing retailer, so we've been hit pretty hard. Right out of the gate, we decided to pivot, so to speak. We redid our website. We created an entirely new division for home because people were spending more time at home. So we thought we could potentially mitigate some of our losses by introducing that while working with local producers and artisans and trying to support our community. We designed and developed and made masks. We were one of the first round of people to make masks because we have fabrics and I'm a tailor. So I created all of that entire program, and we made about 4,500 masks in just a few months period.
And what impact has it had? Has it hurt you? I imagine that it has because you've signed this letter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because in trying to adapt and save our holiday season, we've been working to save our holiday season since April. Mm-hmm. So months and months have gone by in the hopes of just saving our holiday season. Right. And obviously it's been taken away from us, and we feel that we've been unjustly targeted because other retailers are able to stay open and we have not been able to stay open.
Right. Let me get Heather into this conversation. Heather, you represent a much larger company with Indigo, and many would argue that, in fact, books are absolutely an essential service, particularly in this difficult time. But nevertheless, you've had to shut your doors. Tell me about the impact the lockdown has had on you and why you've signed the letter.
Yeah, I just want to quickly say that I hear Sydney's story. And as one entrepreneur to another, Sydney, I so feel what you are feeling. What people don't understand is that months and months and months of work go into preparing for this, and so much money. So I just have to say, like, I so feel what you are feeling, Sid. But let me quickly say something here. There is no data, none, that suggests that retail environments are the cause of spread. This is the critical issue that we must get out. We respect the Premier's desire for health. It is his job. It is our job. We are so behind him for that. But the strategy that's been implemented is just not the right strategy, and it's not a fair strategy. Retail environments have had very little, negligible impact on spread, according to the province's own data. So that's something that we need to get out there. 0.3 to 0.9%, 0.3 to 0.9% of spread is to retail environments. So to take this broad brush and simply say, shut it down, it's devastating for retailers. It is devastating for retailers.
So guys, let me ask you this. If in fact that's the case, if that's the case and retail businesses represent very low terms of community spread, why do you think businesses are being told to shut down? Put yourself in the Premier's shoes, and what do you think's going on there?
This is exactly what we're doing. We're trying to put ourselves in the Premier's shoes and help broaden and make the case that we are not the reason that this data needs to be looked at more carefully, as almost every other jurisdiction has done. And we're saying, if you feel comfortable, put more stringent requirements. Say only 25%. Just 20, instead of 50, say 25% if you want to be extra careful. But this is not a strategy that's going to help with the spread, and it is massively damaging so many businesses and, by extension, jobs. And what will happen to these businesses is quite serious indeed.
Sydney, allow me to turn to Sydney for a moment, please. we've already heard from the Premier, who's saying that he realizes this is an unfortunate situation, but he has to put people's health first, and therefore he had to lock down the locations where they're seeing the highest numbers of spread. And I just wonder, then how do you counter that argument of the Premier saying, sorry, but it is what it is, and we're just going to all have to deal with it? What's the ripple effect of that?
I agree that public safety is our number one concern. I agree. And I agree that with the Premier that it is unfair. He recognizes it's unfair, but they're not willing to make any decisions necessary to make this experience a little bit more equitable. If you're going to shut down retail in Toronto, it should be shut down outside of Toronto as well, or at least limit how big box retailers are going to operate so that it becomes more equitable, because small businesses are taking the brunt of this. Larger retailers have the cash flow capacity to be able to survive through pandemics like this. Smaller retails are choked. And I communicate with all my fellow retailers in my neighborhood, in my BIA, and even outside of that. And we are choking from what is happening. All of us have worked so hard to just stay alive. We're not talking about making money here. We're talking about just staying alive. And they've taken whatever little chance we had, which is our holiday season, away from us. And what is going to occur in the new year is carnage beyond their comprehension.
What do you mean by that? What does that mean?
That the carnage, the closures, and the job losses are going to be insurmountable. They're not even going to understand what the impact that this is going to have on our communities and the landscape of Toronto. And again, I understand public safety is number one. However, if you wanted to make it more equitable, why is Walmart open completely? Why don't they section off those parts of the store that are not essential services? Costco as well. Why can you get a package of steaks and a big flat screen TV? I don't understand how that's equitable for small businesses that are limiting their exposure to the public while they're allowed to go basically willy-nilly, free to do whatever you want, and they're just 5 minutes away. I just don't understand how that makes sense.
Heather, we're talking about this issue of layoffs, and you run such a large company that employs hundreds and hundreds of people across the country. Has there been an impact on that? And what has the impact been?
Of course there has been. First of all, when the stores are not operating except for curbside pickup, your volumes are reduced to almost nothing. So you do have to lay off people. And on top of that, we generally create all kinds of jobs for people at this time of year, which are important jobs. So those disappear completely. And even some of our permanent people have to go on layoff. It is both. I think the critical issue is this is not helping the health issue. It is not. It's pushing people out to longer lines and more crowds in places, fewer numbers of places. So it's not helping the health. And I think what we want the Premier to understand is we are committed to the safety. And by the way, we've demonstrated it. We have demonstrated it through all the investments we've made. You know, Indigo, as a retailer, Indigo operates 200 stores across the country, close to 4,000 employees in our retail stores. Since the beginning of COVID, we have had 8 cases, none of which were contracted within the store and none of which resulted in spread within our store. That data exists. I guarantee if you talk to Sid or if you talk to anybody, that data exists. We are not the spreaders. So let's provide some degree of support and take these precautions seriously and do the things which do help, which is you go out, you do your purchase, you come home, you don't have parties, you don't congregate in places for long periods of time. Let's do what's right, not what's
We are running out of time, so Heather, I want to get you both in, and I'll begin with you. Where does the conversation go from here?
We're hoping that the Premier recognizes that there's an opportunity to both address the safety, support him 100%, and provide the lifeline that we need at this time of year.
Sydney, how long can you last if a conversation doesn't take place and things don't change?
Listen, we're going to make it through. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult. Suffering beyond imagination. Like, I understand as a retailer, as an independent retailer, I've had my woes already. I've opened up the store with debilitating pain, and then 5 years later, I had a fire which decimated our business, and then, like 10 years later, here we are dealing with COVID. It just doesn't. Sometimes it's difficult to operate at the best of times, but now it's just it's beyond. And the psychological toll it's taking on people, it's really just wanting us to leave business altogether and not participate in this type of culture of independent retailers, because we're just getting punished for absolutely no reason, just because we exist.
I want to thank you both so much for your time today. I'm sorry this time has been so difficult for you, and I hope we can continue the conversation as things progress. Heather Reisman, the CEO of Indigo, and Sydney Mamane, the owner of Sydney's in Toronto. Thank you again, both.